Look at your hand, count the fingers. You can see them, you can feel them, you're completely certain they're there. You shouldn't be. From inside your own head, you cannot actually prove that a single one of those fingers is real. The same goes for the hand they're attached to, and the room around you, and the chair underneath you, and every single thing you've ever seen, heard, or touched in your entire life. Try it right now. Find one piece of evidence, just one, that what you're experiencing is real and not a flawless imitation of it. You won't be able to, and the reason why is stranger than it sounds. Everything you know about the world arrives the same way. Light hits your eyes, and your brain turns it into color and shape. Pressure lands on your skin and becomes what you call touch. Air vibrates, and you hear sound. Chemicals dissolve on your tongue, and you taste something. None of those things are the world itself. They're your brain's translation of it. Your brain takes those raw signals, electrical impulses, carried along nerves, and builds a picture out of them. A full, seamless, three-dimensional picture with depth and texture and temperature and emotion. And that picture is the only world you will ever actually meet. You have never once touched reality directly. Not once. You have only ever touched your brain's version of it. And here's where the problem starts. If the only thing you can ever inspect is the picture inside your head, you have no way to step outside that picture and hold it up against the real thing. There is no window. There is no door. There is no view from outside. The final stop for every sight, every sound, every fact you've ever learned is you, alone, inside your own skull. Philosophers have a name for this. They call it the egocentric predicament. You are sealed in, and from the inside, a perfect fake and the real thing look exactly the same. Now here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. You already live through a version of this every single night. When you dream, it all feels completely real while you're inside it. You're being chased and your legs won't move, like you're running through wet concrete. The ground drops away and you're falling with nothing to grab. Your teeth crumble and fall out one by one. And while it's happening, you never once stop to think any of it is strange. Inside the dream, that's just how the world is. And you can't test your way out of it. That's the crucial part. If you stop inside the dream to check your hands or pinch yourself, the dream just produces the hands and the pinch, along with everything else. Every test you could run is made of the same dream. The tools you'd use to check reality are built from the same material as the illusion. You only realize none of it was real after you wake up, when you finally have the solid, waking world to compare it against. So here's the uncomfortable version of that thought, right now, while you're awake. What wider world are you measuring this against? Nearly 400 years ago, a French philosopher named René Descartes sat with that exact question and couldn't shake it. If a dream can feel this convincing from the inside, then nothing you're sensing right now can prove this isn't one. Your certainty that you're awake feels real, but your certainty inside a dream felt real too. The feeling of certainty proves nothing. Descartes pushed it further. He imagined an evil demon, a being with unlimited power, devoted entirely to deceiving him about everything: the ground, the sky, his own body, mathematics itself. He went hunting for one single thing that demon couldn't fake, one solid piece of floor that couldn't be pulled away, and he found almost nothing left standing. The only thing he couldn't doubt was the doubting itself. Something was doing the thinking. Something was having the experience of being deceived. Even if every detail of the world was fake, the experience of questioning it was real. That's where his famous line comes from. Not as a triumphant proof of existence, more like a man clinging to the last solid thing in a room where everything else has dissolved. But even that foothold is smaller than it looks, because knowing that something is experiencing doesn't tell you what that something is. It doesn't tell you whether you have a body, whether your memories are real, whether the world outside your skull exists at all. It just tells you that right now, in this moment, experience is happening. That's it. That's the entire flaw. In 1981, the philosopher Hilary Putnam made the problem even harder to escape. Picture a brain floating in a tank of fluid, kept alive, wired into a computer that feeds it, electrical signals, the exact signals a real body would send, the taste of coffee, the weight of a blanket, the face of someone it loves. That brain would feel an entire life, a childhood, a hometown, a name, friends, fears, plans for the weekend, and it would have absolutely no way to discover the tank. Because every test it could run, every pinch, every glance at its own hands, every scientific measurement it could perform would just be more signal from the same machine. The testing equipment would be simulated. The results would be simulated. The feeling of satisfaction when the test proves the world is real would also be simulated. Now notice the part that should bother you. From the inside, that brain's experience would be identical to yours. Every sensation, every memory, every moment of certainty. There is no difference you could point to and say, this is the part that proves I'm not the one in the tank, because if you were, that proof would feel exactly the same. For most of history, this stayed safely in the category of thought experiment. Philosophy professors could bring it up, students could argue about it over coffee, and then everyone went home to a world that felt solid enough to not worry about it. But something changed, because now we're getting close to being able to build the machine. In 2003, an Oxford philosopher named Nick Bostrom pointed out something simple and very difficult to argue with. If any civilization, ours or any other, ever becomes advanced enough to simulate conscious minds inside a computer, it won't run that simulation once. It will run it thousands of times, millions, maybe billions. Think about why. They might recreate their own past to study how their civilization developed. They might build simulated worlds for entertainment, the way we already create entire universes inside video games. They might run them for research, for training, for art, for reasons we can't even imagine from where we're standing. And every single one of those simulated worlds would be filled with minds that are completely sure they're real. Minds that look at their hands, count their fingers, and feel the absolute certainty that they exist in a physical universe. And the simulation wouldn't have to be perfect to fool you. It wouldn't need to render every galaxy in the universe, just the slice you happen to be looking at. The inside of an atom could stay blank until someone decides to split one open. The chair underneath you could be empty data until the moment you sit down. Stars you never look at don't need to exist. The only thing that truly has to be simulated is the part doing the experiencing, your mind. And a mind, for all its mystery, might be a finite thing to compute. Your brain runs on roughly 100 trillion connections firing in patterns. That's an enormous number, but it's not infinite. It's a number, and numbers can be run on machines. Build a machine large enough and you'd have room to run not just one mind, but billions of them simultaneously. If real, physical, conscious beings ever build even a handful of these simulated worlds, then simulated minds would outnumber real ones by something like 1 billion to 1. So when you ask which kind you are, real or simulated, the math doesn't flatter you. The overwhelming majority of minds that will ever exist would be simulated ones, and the odds say you're in the majority. Plenty of scientists argue this can't be tested at all, and they may be right, but notice that none of them has managed to put a floor under your feet. Nobody has found the proof that settles it. But here's the deeper problem, the one that exists whether or not we're in a simulation. You assume the people around you feel things the way you do. When a friend laughs, you assume there's a real experience happening inside them. That being them actually feels like something. That when they see the color blue, they see something. That when they feel pain, it hurts. You can't check. You have never once felt anyone's experience except your own. You watch their face, you hear their words, and you fill in the rest. You assume there's someone home in there, but you've never been inside to verify. Philosophers describe a creature called a philosophical zombie. It walks, talks, flinches when it stubs its toe, says all the right things at all the right moments. From the outside, it's indistinguishable from a real person, but inside, nothing. The lights are off, nobody home, nothing is being felt. It's behavior without experience. Motion without sensation. A perfect performance of consciousness with no consciousness behind it. And here's what makes it genuinely unsettling. No test could ever tell a zombie apart from a real person, because their behavior is identical. If you asked a zombie whether it feels things, it would say yes. If you asked it to describe the color red, it would describe it perfectly. Every external measurement you could make would come back normal. The only difference, the experience itself, is the one thing you can never access from the outside. The philosopher David Chalmers called this the hard problem of consciousness. We can map exactly which neurons fire when you see the color red. We can trace the pathway from your retina through your visual cortex. The science of what happens is increasingly well understood. What we cannot explain, what nobody has even come close to explaining, is why that neural firing comes wrapped in an experience. Why seeing red feels like something, instead of just happening silently in the dark, the way everything else in the universe seems to operate. Rocks don't experience being rocks. Rivers don't feel the flow. Stars burn for billions of years without a flicker of awareness. Your phone processes billions of calculations per second and feels nothing at all. And then somehow, somewhere, Matter arranged itself in a particular pattern and experience appeared. Not intelligence. Plenty of things can process information without experiencing anything. Experience. The raw sensation of what it's like to be something. The redness of red. The sting of pain. The taste of coffee that isn't just chemistry, but is also, somehow, an event that feels like something from the inside. Nobody knows how that happens. Nobody knows why. The gap between neurons firing in a pattern and someone experiencing redness is not a gap that science has narrowed. It's a gap that science hasn't even figured out how to approach. Every other hard problem in physics, gravity, quantum mechanics, the origin of the universe at least, has a framework. Consciousness doesn't. We don't even have a good theory for where to start looking. And if we can't explain how a brain produces experience, we can't be certain that only brains can do it. Maybe a powerful enough computer could produce it too. And that is exactly the loophole a simulation would need. Then there are the corners of physics that a few scientists point to half seriously, with one eyebrow raised. Reality seems to have a smallest possible size, a scale below which distance stops meaning anything, like an image that stops making sense once you zoom in past its pixels. Below a certain point, the universe just stops having resolution. The speed of light behaves less like a natural law and more like a hard ceiling, the kind of cap you'd write into a system to stop it from overloading. Nothing in physics explains why there should be a maximum speed. There just is one, and it's absolute. And a physicist named James Gates says he found something buried in the equations of supersymmetry that looked like error-correcting code. The same kind of code that runs inside your computer to catch and fix its own mistakes. Patterns that have no obvious reason to be there unless the system was designed to correct itself. None of this proves anything. Gates is the first to say so. But it's the sort of thing that once you've heard it, you can't fully unhear. So step all the way back and try to find the bottom of it. Every belief you hold is propped up by another belief. You trust your senses because they've worked before. You believe they worked before because you remember it. And you trust that memory because so far it has felt reliable. Each rung of the ladder hangs from the one above it. And when you climb all the way to the top, there's nothing holding the whole structure up. You either argue in a circle using your senses to justify your senses, or you chase the justifications forever, each answer demanding another answer beneath it. Or you stop somewhere and quietly declare, "This part I'll just take on faith." There is no fourth option. A German philosopher named Hans Albert laid this trap out and named it after a folk tale about a man who tried to pull himself out of a swamp by grabbing his own hair and yanking upward. That's what proving your own reality from the inside comes down to. Reaching up, grabbing a fistful of your own hair, and pulling. So, are you real? Nobody can prove that you are. Not the greatest philosopher who ever lived, not the most advanced scientific instrument ever built, and not you. But just as importantly, nobody can prove that you aren't. There is no argument and no view from outside the picture that settles it in either direction. The question just sits there, permanently open, with you stuck inside it. The mathematician Martin Gardner was once asked how he lived with that uncertainty. He said he chose to believe the world is real, not because he could prove it, but because that belief is healthier, and it works. That might be the most honest answer anyone has ever given. You will never get to touch reality bare. You're stuck in here, behind your own eyes, working from a picture you can't fully verify. But the warmth of the person beside you still feels like warmth. The questions still feel worth asking. And whether the ground under you is solid rock or running code, you're the one standing on it, getting to wonder about any of this at all. There's exactly one thing in here that no demon, no tank, and no simulation can take from you. It's the fact that something, right now, is being experienced. That part is happening. Whatever this is, you're in it. So you might as well be here for it.